We're always turning corners. There are always corners to turn. Corners are turning all around us. Corners at every turn. Corners at every turn.
Background, I was a very average student at King Edward School in Lichfield. I had enjoyed some subjects. English, biology and PE were my favourite. I also enjoyed being in the school cross-country team and the hockey team. And for a couple of years I competed with the Royal Sutton Coldfield Athletics Club as a middle distance runner. I'd had a bunch of part-time jobs whilst at school. I worked every Saturday morning in my dad's factory from the age of 11 for a few years, and that was a fair amount of blood, sweat and tears, literally. I'd had numerous paper rounds. I used to help the postman on his rounds. I did potato picking, worked in a kitchen of a pub, and worked on the tills and stacking shelves at Safeway. All kind of standard stuff really for the 1970s. When it came to leaving school in 1979, I really didn't have a clear idea about what I wanted to do. So based on the careers officer's advice, I went off to a local college to do a business diploma. I had pondered a little about maybe getting into journalism, but my grades were not sufficient for university. In those days, only the more academic would go to university. And after a couple of largely unstimulating years at college and still being naive and not really knowing what I wanted to do, I went on to spend my 20s wide-eyed and doing all manner of jobs. As a land ranger for the Staffordshire Nature Conservation Trust, a machine operator in various factories, a warehouse man in various warehouses, on farms in Kent and France, working the hop and grape harvests, and plenty of delivery driving. I had a strong work ethic, but no discernible trade skills, even though my dad, who was an engineer, he'd always said to me, get a trade. So the jobs I did in the 1980s were usually simply to save enough money to go travelling, pay my rent, keep a camper van on the road. And amongst this, I did work for the family business for a few years actually, and it was fine. But it didn't really excite me. So I left to go travelling. I love the countryside, I love playing music, having big adventures, writing poetry, searching for meaning. I cycled everywhere, hiked a lot, practiced yoga, became vegetarian, and just generally enjoyed meeting interesting people. And I guess I was something of a free spirit. My dad called it flower power. In 1995, after returning from a spell working in Europe, just by chance, I saw an advert for a full-time sports therapy diploma at my local technical college. I'd never heard of sports therapy before, but I was drawn to it instantly, and the subjects it incorporated, learning about the body and fitness, injuries and health problems, exercise and treatments. I could become a qualified therapy professional helping others within 1 year. It sounded fantastic. And the college was just down the road and I didn't have to pay for the course. When I stepped through the door of the college as a mature student out of education for over 10 years, I really wasn't sure how I was going to get on. But I knew it was a fantastic opportunity and I was going to give it my best shot. To fund myself during this period, I took on a job as the night security guy for the Travel Inn. I think it was 4 nights a week, and that was interesting in itself. Looking back, I had a great time studying sports therapy there. They say you don't forget your teachers. The tutors were great. They included a very experienced physiotherapist and osteopath in Rosemary Howie and Jennifer Candlish, some great holistic therapists, including Vicky Schwartz, and a cool sports tutor and Muay Thai master trainer, Tony Myers. It was an exciting time for me. I was a diligent student, completely captivated by it. I had a great cohort of mixed students with me, and it was amazing the confidence that we built quite quickly to do things together. The course I took was the infamous VAI, Vocational Awards International, Level 3 diploma. It's now long gone, and to say the least, sports therapy qualifications are very different these days. Amazingly, though, it gave me an opportunity to start a career and an initial membership of the Federation of Holistic Therapists, the FHT. Thankfully, I've got very few photos from my time there. I hadn't even heard of the SST at this time, and there were no degree-level sports therapy courses. As many of you will know, although the Society of Sports Therapists were formed in 1990 and entry was via accredited diploma courses, the world's first ever BSc degree course in sports therapy was developed in partnership with the SST at the University of North London, which is now known as London Metropolitan, London Met. But that didn't run until 1996. There was no such thing as the World Wide Web until around 1990, and up until then, that was initially only in academic and institutional environments. There was no public access, no websites, and no commercial use. Dial-up internet from the home phone landline began to become available in around 1992, but it wasn't widespread. Home internet access increased significantly only in around 1998, aided by the release of Windows 98. Hence, the IT revolution was only really just beginning, and access to information in those days was always challenging. As I say, there were no websites, no online application forms, no digital record keeping, and communication and information sharing up to this point in time had to rely only on printed journals, newspapers and magazines, books, postal correspondence, landlines, word of mouth, and professional meetings. You know, even mobile phones only gained widespread adoption in the late 1990s, and paging and text sharing functions only really became commonplace by the early 2000s. It wasn't until around 2010, just around 16 years ago, that smartphones, the bane and blessing of our modern life, began to become a fixture in our pockets and hands. So in those pre-digital days, personally, I found myself on a continual mission to try and find the useful information to help me become a better therapist. I became a member and very frequent user of all the county libraries, and when I could, I would get access to university medical libraries. These, to me, were like oases. And I spent a fortune at the photocopier on book chapters and journal articles. So I completed this first course. It's very much a basic foundation, following comparatively by today's degree standards, somewhat limited national occupational standards, but at that time it was sufficient. While we did have to achieve and complete a range of work experience during this first course, I also took the opportunity to contact local osteopathic and physiotherapy clinics where I was able to get many hours of additional voluntary placement experience. This I found to be extremely beneficial, not only for clinical experience, but also to understand more about the wide range of patients and the operational side of things. Shadowing and practically supporting experienced practitioners and debriefing with them in their busy clinics was really great for me. I then found myself being invited to work as a sports therapist in a clinic within the Telford International Centre, which is a large conferencing centre, and at the time it was also a national tennis and racket centre, hosting a range of tournaments, and it also had a large tennis membership. I was able to work in the gym as a fitness instructor, and I also looked after many of the tennis coaches and players as well as gym members in the clinic. It was another great opportunity for me to gain experience and confidence. At the same time, I was also invited to assist with the teaching of the sports therapy diploma at the college where I trained, Cannock Chase Technical College. That was a turning point. I would never have thought of becoming a teacher. I wouldn't have thought I had much to teach, but here was someone presenting me with an opportunity to try it. It was certainly a fresh challenge. I was given regular part-time hours, put on a City and Guilds teacher training course, and I took all the courses I could find in relation to sports and exercise therapy. I was still living in libraries. There really was still very little online in 1996. And I was having to learn how to use a computer, even though I'd done a subject at school in the mid-70s called computer studies. We just learned about binary code. The school didn't even have a computer, I don't think. Binary code is the direct language of computers, representing the on-off states in electronic circuits. So now I was starting to find my feet. I put a lot of effort into my teaching prep, my class handouts, my lesson plans, and my CPD. I also began looking for other places to practice. At one point, I was working in a different Midlands town every day of the week, renting a room, providing sports therapy services. Eventually, after working regularly in places such as Lichfield, Cannock, Stafford, Sutton Coldfield, Birmingham, I settled on a small village clinic, the Brood Natural Therapy Centre near Wolverhampton, and a large pharmacy and health centre in West Bromwich. These were the two places where I had developed a strong, regular clientele. Both had a wide catchment area and very supportive clinic owners who actively promoted my practice. I stayed with these for a number of years and still see some of my clients to this day. I would typically work on around 25% commission rather than a flat rent, and I tended to do 2 days and evenings at each clinic per week. I continued to keep these practices running alongside my part-time teaching duties. And then during this period, I moved from teaching at Cannock College to a new role at Walsall College of Arts and Technology in 1999, where I became course coordinator and lecturer in sports therapy for several years on a part-time 3 days a week contract, which allowed me to continue with my private practice. It was another great time for me. I had a regular practice, I was up and running, and I was developing as a teacher and lecturer. Sequencing everything.